There are a lot of main series Pokemon games out there, 40 to be exact if you include the upcoming Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet games releasing later this year. I've played a ton of Pokemon, from doing regular playthroughs to Nuzlocke to playing them the Nintendo intended way, and in this video, we will be playing every main series Pokemon game in order, talking a bit about each and then ranking them. First off, we have the OGs, of course, Pokemon Red and Blue. These games started it all, so alone that counts for something. These games brought us the most iconic Pokemon and characters like Charizard, which everyone loves and totally isn't sick of, right? Red and Blue made Pokemon take the world by storm and is still incredibly popular today, over 26 years later. While playing them today might be a bit tedious due to the fact that you can't run, you have limited bag space and have to constantly deposit or sell items, and using that PC is much like how using an actual PC from 26 years ago would probably feel. There's also a plethora of cool or weird glitches in Pokemon Red and Blue, and they still have their own charm, and Pokemon wouldn't be what it is today if it wasn't for Pokemon Red and Blue. The glitches are actually one of my favorite parts about Pokemon Red and Blue, since there's just so many of them, allowing you to do some ridiculous things. There's the infamous missing no glitch that can be used to get infinite rare candies or any item of your choice, and the various glitch city glitches, which always fascinated me. I'll stick Pokemon Red and Blue in C tier because they're nostalgic, still fun, but don't hold up that well today. Then after Red and Blue, we saw Pokemon Yellow version released. This is an updated version of Pokemon Red and Blue that fixed some of its problems, although it still had some cool glitches of its own and introduced its own problems. The sprites all got revamped to actually look like Pokemon, unlike in Red and Blue where they don't really look like Pokemon. And you can battle Jesse and James of Team Rocket much like you could in the anime, and even have a Pikachu following around much like Ash did. And Pokemon following you is something we wouldn't see return on a Pokemon game for nearly a decade. I'll also stick Pokemon Yellow in C tier since it's basically the same thing as Red and Blue, and there really isn't much else to talk about other than what we just covered. Now we have Pokemon Gold and Silver, a proper sequel that built upon Red and Blue and added a lot of smaller cool things like Pokemon breeding, berries, which we love around here, and had more of a focus on the legendary Pokemon, all of which have been staples in every new Pokemon game since. In Generation 1, the legendary Pokemon weren't that much of a focus outside of brief hints towards Mew and Mewtwo's origins, but this time Ho-Oh and Lugia play a prominent role, and you see the legendary Johto trio pretty early on throughout your journey. There's daily events, Pokemon affection, a day-night cycle, and overall a very good successor to the original games, and when compared to Pokemon Red and Blue or even earlier Game Boy games in general, it really shows how far this little console was pushed. You can even travel back to a condensed version of Kanto and have a quick journey through the region of your own, making for one of the best, if not the best, post games in any Pokemon game since. The level pacing is a bit awkward in Gold and Silver though, especially with the later Johto gyms, since you can battle them in pretty much any order you want. But overall, I still think Gold and Silver are good Pokemon games that hold up better than Red and Blue and is worthy of being in the B tier. This brings us to Pokemon Crystal, an upgraded version of Pokemon Gold and Silver where you can now play in full color on your Game Boy Color and play as a girl character for the very first time in a Pokemon game. The key difference with Crystal over Pokemon Gold and Silver is having more of a focus on Suicune, and a few other minor changes like some trainers having their teams changed around, and the sprites do this cute little dance when they're sent out now. It's a solid upgrade over Pokemon Gold and Silver, but like most of the follow-up games we see, they don't really add all that much, which is why I'll stick Crystal in B tier along with Gold and Silver. Now onto the game that I have the most memories with, Pokemon Ruby and Pokemon Sapphire. This brings us into the era where I think many of you guys watching this video started playing Pokemon, as they were the first Pokemon games released on the Game Boy Advance. These games brought a lot of technical changes like the introduction of abilities, EVs, IVs, expanding upon held items and berries introduced in the previous generation, and you actually have a dad in this game, which isn't very common at all for Pokemon games. This is also when they got more ambitious with their evil teams and ditched Team Rocket in favor of new evil teams in each game, in this case Team Aqua, who wants to flood the world, and Team Magma, who wants to drain all the oceans. Ruby and Sapphire were the first Pokemon games where you had a friendly rival rival too, as in the previous 2 generations, your rivals were kind of jerks. And going forward from this point on, every rival in a new game was friendly. You finally learn how to sprint in these games, and Berry's got a huge overhaul, adding so many of them, which are staples in Pokemon today. Ruby and Sapphire are the games that added the most to the series, and I didn't even go over all of them, and even though they're about 20 years old now, yeah, feel old yet? They hold up a bit better than the Pokemon games released prior to them, which is why I'll stick them in B tier as well, but above Gold, Silver, and Crystal. When going back and playing Ruby and Sapphire, there really isn't any instance where I run into a situation where things aged poorly, and I think even if you're new to the series, you'll still enjoy Ruby and Sapphire today. Since Pokemon Red and Blue didn't really age all that well, Game Freak thought, hey, what if we just make Pokemon Red and Blue again, but for the Game Boy Advance? So they did it in 2004. These games take the story and overall feel of Pokemon Red and Blue, but combine it with Ruby and Sapphire's engine and more modern Pokemon feel to make what I would consider the best way to play through the Kanto region in a Pokemon game. Those beloved glitches from Red and Blue are gone, however, and unlike the originals, we have an expanded post-game with the Sevi Islands. This part of the game really bridges the gap that Team Rocket left at the end of Red and Blue and the start of Gold and Silver, really fleshing out Team Rocket's story. It's not as expansive as going back to Kanto and Gold and Silver, but it was really cool having this mini region in a Pokemon game. One of my favorite memories with Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green back when they were new is going to all of these events to get event Pokemon, because back then, if you wanted to get event Pokemon, you had to get them in person and usually wait in line and connect your Game Boy up to some sort of machine. It's not like today where you can just open up your Switch, connect online, and then boom, you got an event Pokemon without even leaving your house. I'm gonna put Fire Red and Leaf Green in B tier as well because of this. Lots of B tiers, but that'll change soon, don't worry. Since I think they're better than the original Pokemon Red and Blue games, and they're one of the Pokemon games I find myself going back and playing a lot. Do you guys hear trumpets? Must be because we're back in the Hoenn region again with Pokemon Emerald version, which released right after Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. This is Ruby and Sapphire's follow-up game, much like how Crystal was to Gold and Silver, but this time Emerald version adds a bit more on top of Ruby and Sapphire than Crystal did to Gold and Silver. Some teams are changed around again, of course. People can call you again on your Pokénav, which was kind of annoying. And since Ruby and Sapphire had version-exclusive evil teams and Emerald version is just one version, both Team Magma and Team Aqua are included in this game, and we see a new Team Magma base even in the Jagged Pass to flesh out their story a bit more. The story has changed a bit to involve Rayquaza, or maybe it's Rayquaza. No matter how I say it, someone will say I said it wrong in the comments, and every time I mention something like that, it leads to more comments because comments are good for the algorithm, so thanks. And of course, Emerald also had the Battle Frontier. This is my favorite battle area out of any Pokemon game, although as a kid I didn't really know what I was doing when I was first playing it. My favorite by far was the Battle Factory, where you had rental Pokemon and could use all these weird random Pokemon without having to train them yourself. Emerald also strangely has a lot of cool glitches that the other GBA Pokemon games don't have. Even Ruby and Sapphire don't have all these glitches, and I have an older video on them if you want to go check them out. And for all of these reasons, I'm putting Emerald version in A tier. I think it's a bit better than Ruby and Sapphire all around, as I would put Ruby and Sapphire towards the top of my B tier. And I can see a lot of people even putting Emerald in their S tier, since whenever I hear people talk about their favorite Pokemon game, Emerald is mentioned a lot. After Emerald version, we head to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, where Pokemon decided to double up on their screens and enter the era of the Nintendo DS. Twice the screens means these games are twice as better as the previous ones, right? Well, not exactly, but a lot of Pokemon fans do look back on the DS era of Pokemon games as being some of the best in the series. Diamond and Pearl were the first ones on the system, of course, and it really shows. Diamond and Pearl are a bit laggy, they run a bit slow, and there's some screen tearing, but Diamond and Pearl did bring a lot of firsts to the Pokemon series. We had the physical and special split of moves so that all moves of a certain type didn't just fall into one of those two categories, and the introduction of online connectivity, which is huge. I remember spending hours on the GTS looking for a rare or shiny Pokemon I could trade online, and learning how to competitive battle against people across the world for the very first time. It was hard to battle competitively prior to Diamond and Pearl without the access of online battling, and although it did technically exist before then, competitive battling really took off with the 4th generation of Pokemon as official VGC events started shortly after Diamond and Pearl released. I still remember when I first put Pokemon Pearl in my DS, chose my Turtwig starter, and played non-stop for a week until I beat it and kept struggling against Cynthia. Since I mainly focused on my fond memories of playing Pokemon Diamond and Pearl when they were new in this section of the video, you probably think I'll rate them pretty highly, which is why I'll put them in A tier. They do have their flaws, and although they're still one of my most played Pokemon games out there, this next game takes Diamond and Pearl to another level. Pokemon Platinum version released about 2 years after Diamond and Pearl, and although waiting 2 years for a new Pokemon game that just ended up being an enhanced version of the previous game might not go over too well today, Pokemon Platinum was definitely worth the wait. It ran a bit better than Diamond and Pearl, fixed up some of the gym leaders' team members, most notably Volkner's, I mean what is this Diamond and Pearl team compared to his Platinum team, and fixed the gym pacing a little bit by moving Fantina's gym from the 5th gym to the 3rd gym leader. This time we have more of a focus on Giratina as well, the 3rd legendary Pokemon of Sinnoh, and the mystical distortion world where you find Giratina. Giratina is one of my favorite legendary Pokemon since it's basically just the Pokemon version of the devil. How cool is that? And it has this awesome shiny version that I remember getting in an event back in the day. Now I personally don't like the distortion world all that much because I always just get lost in it, but these minor changes and improvements that Platinum added over Diamond and Pearl are very welcome. It also enhanced the online experience a bit with the Wi-Fi Plaza, added the Rotom forms, which I absolutely love, my favorite is the Microwave, and added a new Battle Frontier similar to the one in Emerald version, just a bit smaller. I never really played this version of the Battle Frontier all that much, but since Platinum is basically just a straight upgrade over Diamond and Pearl in almost every way, I have to put them in S tier. I might play Diamond and Pearl a bit more, but out of every single Pokemon game on this list, I think S tier for Platinum is the one that most of you guys would agree on. Then to wrap up the 4th generation era of games, we saw the release of another remake Pokemon game, Pokemon Heart Gold and Pokemon Soul Silver, which remade the original Gold and Silver games with some crystal elements and added even more to the Johto experience. While it didn't fix the weird level gap issue that Gold and Silver had, kinda like how Platinum did to Diamond and Pearl, it still did a pretty good job of modernizing Generation 2 to add all these new features added since Gold and Silver, much like how Fire Red and Leaf Green did to the original Red and Blue games. Pokemon can now follow you around in this game, which is a fan favorite feature for sure, and one underrated element of Heart Gold and Soul Silver that's hard to replicate today are the events that this game had. There was an event to get one of the Lottie twins in Pewter City, an event that showed more about Giovanni's relationship with the Generation 2 rival, and many other events that were in person too, like this one event for the 3 shiny legendary beasts if you went to GameStop in about 2010 in the United States, and of course, I got all 3. For a while, these games were looked at as some of the best in the series, but lately that has been changing a bit for Generation 2 / Johto games as a whole, since this technically isn't a Generation 2 game. People are starting to realize just how annoying the level curve and the gym orientation is, and from what I've seen, people either rate this game really highly or really lowly. There's no in between. I'm gonna put Heart Gold and Soul Silver in A tier though, since it's my preferred way to experience the Johto region, and I always have a ton of fun playing this game and have a lot of fond memories battling online and breeding for my Pokemon in this game, since Heart Gold and Soul Silver was really when I started to understand how to EV train and battle properly. Then following Heart Gold and Soul Silver, we travel to the Unova region for Pokemon Black and White, the second new generation Pokemon game released on the Nintendo DS, and the first time something like that's happened since Pokemon Gold and Silver released on the Game Boy. This was a soft reboot for Pokemon, so to say, where you can only encounter new Unovan Pokemon until you become the champion, as they tried to recreate the feeling of playing Red and Blue for the first time and not knowing much about Pokemon. This was rather controversial at the time, but I liked using all these brand new Pokemon when I first played Black and White, and I love the starters in this game, especially Oshawott. I consider Black and White to be the start of modern Pokemon, so to say, although that starting point can be debated a little bit, mainly because this was the start of Pokemon games having more of a focus on a story and their characters, rather than just becoming the champion. And in terms of features and upgrades, we saw a lot less new staple features added since 5th generation, as although 5th generation did add triple battles, those were removed just a couple of generations later, and unlike say Ruby and Sapphire or Gold and Silver, what they did add wasn't really all that much. Instead of focusing on adding these new mechanics and features, they really focused on just perfecting Pokemon as a whole, and I think it turned out pretty well, and is also one of the most beloved Pokemon characters out there, the legendary Pokemon Pokemon are great in this generation and include some of my favorites, and the Unova region as a whole has a ton to explore. I feel like Black and White have only gotten better and more loved by Pokemon fans as time went on, which is why I'm putting Pokemon Black and White 1 in A tier. The 5th generation as a whole is my favorite Pokemon generation, and this next game released is a follow-up to Black and White 1. The next game in the series is of course Pokemon Black and White 2, the first proper sequel to a Pokemon game. It isn't quite like how Gold and Silver is, which is a loose sequel to Red and Blue, and isn't quite like Pokemon Platinum or Pokemon Emerald version, as Black and White 2 take place 2 years after the events of Pokemon Black and White 1, and have a lot of differences over them. There's different protagonists, old Pokemon you can catch before becoming the champion this time around, different gym leaders and towns even, and we've never seen a Pokemon game quite like Black and White 2, which makes them so unique. The evil team, Team Plasma, returns as Team Neoplasma, trying to restore their status as much as they can, kinda like how Team Rocket did in Gold and Silver. Now, like I said for Black and White 1, in terms of mechanics and pushing Pokemon, it didn't really add or do a whole lot, but what we got were some of the best Pokemon games in the series, and my personal favorite game in Black 2 and White 2, which just built upon and improved Black and White 1. For all these reasons, I'm gonna put Black and White 2 in S tier. In 2013, Pokemon finally came to the Nintendo 3DS with Pokemon X and Y, where we saw the series jump to 3D as well as introduce Mega Evolution, and the start of the trend of each generation having some weird battle mechanic like Mega Evolution that was removed shortly after. X and Y are probably the easiest Pokemon games out there as well, and it was the start of the EXP share working on all of your Pokemon being standard. This was controversial, but I enjoyed not having to grind up my Pokemon like in previous games anymore, since grinding just isn't fun. Mega Pokemon look so cool too and were fun to use, especially in the card game, giving a much needed buff to some older Pokemon, although other Pokemon that were already pretty powerful got Megas when they didn't really need them. And of course, you know, there's Charizard just getting 2 Megas, and the only other Pokemon to get 2 Megas is Mewtwo, another Gen 1 Pokemon. There isn't as much exploration in the Kalos region as previous regions like say Unova or Hoenn, but it does have Lumio City, one of the biggest and coolest cities in all of Pokemon that no one ever really knew their way around and always got lost in. This was of course based off of Paris, as the Kalos region was based off of France. They really tried to blend a lot of the Gen 1 nostalgia in this game to something you see in Pokemon games from time to time, but X and Y are one of the biggest culprits of this, with the aforementioned Mega Charizards, the ability to get a Kanto starter from Professor Sycamore, and a lot of the Mega Pokemon being Kanto Pokemon anyway. I've also noticed that in recent years, a lot of people attribute the jump to 3D that X and Y brought us as a mistake. And while I personally do prefer the 2D art style, especially when it comes to Pokemon sprites, I think moving to 3D was a necessary change, and while it wasn't perfect the first time they did it, it slowly improved over time. Overall, X and Y are just decent Pokemon games. I feel like this is the only Pokemon game on the list I can say is probably nobody's favorite Pokemon game of all time. They aren't amazing, but they really aren't that bad either. I'll put them in C tier as they're just okay, and I do still enjoy these games, but don't find myself picking it up nearly as much as I do some of the games that are higher up on this list. Does anybody hear more trumpets? Must be because we're back in the Hoenn region again for Pokemon Omega Ruby and Pokemon Alpha Sapphire. I just recently finished playing this game again recently, and for the third remake games in the series, this is what I'd consider to be a remake Pokemon game done right. We have all the original elements that made Ruby and Sapphire so great, altered a little bit to fit with the Mega Evolution storyline introduced in X and Y, to be a bit more of a reimagining rather than just a straight up one-to-one remake. Trainers have different Pokemon, most notably the Elite Four having Pokemon released after Generation 3, like Phoebe having a Dusknoir. Mauville City was overhauled to be more like Lumio City and include more restaurants and shops, and the evil teams, Team Aqua and Team Magma, received some redesigns, a couple of new members, and a slightly altered storyline to involve Mega Evolution and Primal Reversion with the cover legendary of each game. They added a few more Mega Evolutions from X and Y 2, more focused on Hoenn-based Pokemon this time around, which was a nice and welcome update to the battling scene. And nearly every good thing I said about Ruby and Sapphire can also apply to Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire as well. It was a shame that there weren't more Emerald elements in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, most notably the Battle Frontier, and I think that's really the biggest flaw with this game in my opinion. You can argue that this game existing also potentially took the spot of a follow-up game to Pokemon X and Y, as those games kind of desperately needed a follow-up game to tie up the Zygarde story, but I still think that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are the best remake Pokemon games in the series, even better than Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but in the end I'd say that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are great Pokemon games and the best remake Pokemon games in the whole series. For that reason, I'll put them in A tier, which also might be recency bias because I just played through this game again, and I can at least see the argument for Heart Gold Soul Silver being the best remake game, but the fact that Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire changed up the story a little bit gives it that little bit of an edge over Heart Gold Soul Silver to me. From the tropical Hoenn region, we head on over to the even more tropical Alola region with Pokemon Sun and Moon released in 2016. Sun and Moon have island trials over gyms this time, totem Pokemon which act like these cool boss fights and summon other Pokemon to help them out, and Z moves which are powered up moves you can only use once per battle and sort of act like gym badges in a way since you get a lot of them after trial battles. They also introduced regional variants with Alolan Pokemon this time, which I think is a really neat way of introducing new Pokemon without actually adding new Pokemon. We've seen many other regional variations ever since this game, and I think that's my favorite part about Sun and Moon, to be honest, is all the cool regional forms we got, which definitely inspired newer regional forms with future Pokemon games. Now in Sun and Moon this time around, the game focuses more on a story with the Aether Foundation and Ultra Beasts, which are basically space Pokemon, kinda cool, rather than your own journey to become the champion. Zygarde had part of its lore just thrown in here instead of an X and Y, and the Festival Plaza is the worst online experience I had in a Pokemon game since half the time when you go to the plaza to look for a friend to trade or battle, they just don't appear online for you even if you're both online. It worked just fine in X and Y, so I don't know what happened here. Now, I really don't want to dwell on this one too much, since I think I'm in the minority when I say this, but Gen 7 as a whole is my least favorite generation of all time, and it really isn't even that close. I've talked about this a lot in the past, so I'll just put Sun and Moon in D tier for now, and move on to the next games, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. These games are the follow-up games to Pokemon Sun and Moon. They added a couple of new Ultra Beasts like Blacephalon and Naganadel, which are both really cool, especially in the TCG, and expanded upon Necrozma's story and Ultra Space a bit more. This was pretty cool and all, but it's a small part of the game that was added. Maybe I set my expectations too high for this one when it was coming out. Since they are paired follow-up games, I expected them to be more like Black 2 and White 2 were to Black and White 1, but they weren't at all. And even compared to older follow-up Pokemon games like Platinum was to Diamond and Pearl, or Emerald to Ruby and Sapphire, I think Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are the worst follow-up games we've had so far. I'm gonna put them in F tier, but you could honestly just swap it with Sun and Moon in D tier, since Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon did at least add on to Sun and Moon. I just enjoyed my first playthrough of Sun and Moon more than my first playthrough of Ultra Sun Ultra Moon, since it's the only Pokemon game I didn't beat right away after it came out since Red and Blue. I did play through Ultra Sun Ultra Moon 2 times since then, and it was just okay. Coming off of Generation 7, we head back to the Kanto for the first Pokemon game on the Nintendo Switch. These games are essentially just remakes of Pokemon Yellow version, follow a very similar storyline to Red, Blue, and Yellow, but have Mega Evolutions, a catching mechanic more like the catching mechanics in Pokemon Go, no abilities on your Pokemon, and no held items, as well as different protagonists and a different rival from the original Gen 1 games, although the original protagonist, Red, and the original rival still appear in this game, despite your new character following the same events as Red and Blue. This, of course, doesn't make that much sense in terms of continuity, but who cares about that? It was still a fun game. It's definitely on the easier side of Pokemon games, sort of like Pokemon X and Y, making it a pretty good first game for new players, especially younger kids, or people who know Generation 1 Pokemon, want to play Pokemon again and relive that Gen 1 nostalgia that everybody loves. Pokemon Red was my first Pokemon game I ever played, so playing Let's Go for the first time in 2018 and seeing the Kanto region in HD was pretty awesome, but it's still just Generation 1 again. I'll stick it in C tier along with the other Gen 1 games though, since I prefer to play Fire Red or Leaf Green if I want to go back and play through Kanto, but the fact that it's on the Switch and has online connectivity is still pretty neat. Leaving the Kanto region, we head to Galar for Pokemon Sword and Shield, the first new generation Pokemon game on the Switch, and a Pokemon game that absolutely nobody in this world hates, right? Now the gimmick this time around is Dynamaxing and Gigantamaxing, where Pokemon get really big and have strong attacks for 3 turns, and in the case of Gigantamaxing, they change appearance a little bit. This is a weird blend between Mega Evolution from X and Y and Z moves from Sun and Moon, and to be honest, I don't really care much for this. The most memorable Gigantamax Pokemon to me is Charizard, since of course Charizard had to get a new form. The champion Leon ends up using a Charizard too, and Charizard Gigantamax has like 15 different TCG cards that everybody goes crazy for. I do like that the towns in the Galar region are big and have lots of places to go, but the elephant, or should I say Cuffins, or Cuffins because there's 2 of them in the room, are the graphics being mediocre, and the absence of the full national Pokemon decks. Not gonna harp on this one too much, since I'm sure you've heard tons about this in the past, and they don't really take away from regular gameplay much at all, but we did get the wild area, which was still pretty sick. I spent so much time in the wild area just running around and catching Pokemon, which was just expanded upon with the 2 DLC packs released later on, adding a new legendary Pokemon Urshifu with some lore behind it. But the 2 DLCs are still my favorite areas in the Galar region. I'm pretty sure I spent more time in the DLC areas, especially Isle of Armor, than I did playing the actual game. Now if you didn't click off when I said I didn't like Sun and Moon that much, because, you know, opinions on the internet are scary, prepare to click off now when I put Pokemon Sword and Shield in B tier, but towards the very end of it. I'd say they're above Let's Go to me and a smidge above X and Y, but definitely below Ruby, Sapphire, and the Trumpets. And hey, look at that! This takes us to Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, another remake Pokemon game that's on the Nintendo Switch, and another Pokemon game that isn't controversial whatsoever. Okay, I'll stop making that joke now. These games were a mostly faithful remake to Pokemon Diamond and Pearl on the DS and have virtually none of the Platinum improvements whatsoever. It added the expanded underground, which sort of functions like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl's wild area, changed how TMs worked a little bit, and slightly altered some trainers' teams and movesets, but not quite like the way Platinum did. I personally don't really mind that they didn't add all the Platinum changes, but come on Nintendo, this is the second time we got a remake Pokemon game that had a Battle Frontier that wasn't added in the remake. It's also worth noting that Game Freak didn't make Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, as a company known as Ilka did instead. Now I like the idea of offloading these remake games to other studios so Game Freak can work on other games like they did with Legends Arceus. And what we ended up getting in Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is a pretty good Pokemon game. I like the overall colors and feel of the game, the speedruns are insane to watch, and I just have a fun time playing it. I'll put it in B tier since Platinum is still better, even Diamond and Pearl you could argue are still better, but at least Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl run a bit better than Diamond and Pearl, and can be played on the Switch, which I just love my Switch. As we leave the Sinnoh region, we stay in the Sinnoh region, sort of, with Pokemon Legends Arceus taking place in the Hisui region, an ancient Sinnoh, so to say. These are the newest Pokemon games at the time of recording, and they're very different, but in a good way. There's no gyms this time, different battle mechanics with strong style moves and agile style moves, which are pretty neat, alpha Pokemon which are just angry, lots of Pokemon history and lore from the region and characters in Pokemon, and it's just a really fun game to explore and catch a bunch of Pokemon, since catching in this game is the main objective here. You can just sneak up behind something, toss a Pokeball, catch them off guard, and catch them without actually battling them. Pokemon fans have wanted a game sort of like this for years in this Breath of the Wild style, so to say, and what we ended up getting was a pretty good game. I will say Pokemon Legends Arceus does feel a little empty, with there being no other towns aside from the Jubilee village where you start out in, and I don't know how to accurately describe this, but while playing Legends Arceus for the first time, it didn't really feel like I was playing a Pokemon game, so to say. It just felt like I was playing a game, and it was good. Or maybe that made no sense at all, so let's just go on to the rating. Solid A tier Pokemon game in my opinion. And then after Legends Arceus, we have Pokemon Scarlet and Pokemon Violet. These games are not out yet, so I can't play them in this video of course, but I'm excited to see what they bring to the Pokemon franchise. It looks like there'll be a blend of Legends Arceus and more traditional Pokemon games we've seen in the past, which I'm all about. I'll show my final tier list here on screen as well if you want to see the full list, and let me know in the comments down below what your personal tier list looks like. Keep in mind this is all opinion based and whatnot, so there's no right or wrong answer, and also make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more Pokemon videos. So have a good rest of your day, bye bye.